Hey team, I wanted to go over the directions for the final research proposal with you all. I know I've gotten a couple questions and there seems to be a little bit of confusion. I want to apologize for that. I have been trying to piecemeal out the research proposal so that you all didn't get hit with a 20-page paper request towards the end of the term. And I think that's just caused a little bit of confusion there. So hopefully when we go through this, I'll answer all of your questions. If I do not answer all of your questions, then please send me an email, give me a quick call, and we will go over it. So first, let me address the due dates and one critical change that I made. I have decided to eliminate the peer review component of this assignment. In my experience, it is a really, really good learning tool. Unfortunately, with smaller classes and folks that know each other, it gets a little tricky. So I either get uh, reviews that really trash a paper, or I don't get very many comments at all. So I've just decided to shelve that until I can figure out how to get students to engage it in the way that I would like to see it happen. So that part of this assignment is no longer required. To repeat, you do not have to do a peer review component for the final research paper. So now let's talk about the due dates. The draft of your literature review and introduction, that was due on March 17th. You have already turned that in. You have already gotten feedback on it. It was worth 100 points. The list of articles for your literature review, this was due by the 14th, and it is worth 25 points. The draft of the literature review, this is just one of 5 sections of the paper, and it was just a draft. This was due yesterday. The Dropbox for this is in the new module page, Units 15 through 17, Final Product Dropbox. I have gotten a few email submissions. Some folks had some issues getting things uploaded last night. I cannot accept this via email. You must go back into the to the link and upload your paper. Like I said, all the Dropboxes for the final products are in a new folder. It's called Units 15 through 17 Final Product Dropbox. So if you submitted that to me via email, I probably already responded. Please go back in and upload the paper. That is worth 50 points. The full complete draft of your research proposal is due on April 28th by 11:59 p.m. This is worth 200 points. I will review your papers and provide detailed feedback, and you will get that feedback from me by May 1st. So you will have a week to address any of my comments. Please note that when I leave a comment, it's something I want you to do. It's not a suggestion. It's not a think about it. It's change it. Edit it, revise it, fix it, so on and so forth. So please, there's a bubble there, because sometimes I insert comments, sometimes I use track changes, but please pay attention to those carefully, because when I go back through your final draft, I put your papers side by side. I put your draft next to the final product. And if I asked you to add a section or delete a section and that wasn't done, you will get points deducted for that. So please make sure you look at the feedback and that you address each element of the comments that I provide back to you. Some additional notes. The final research proposal itself is due on May 8th by 11:59 p.m. It's worth 100 points. Late assignments will not be accepted for the research proposal. All assignments have a new Dropbox for each component listed above and below, unless they've already been submitted. So I have moved all of the Dropboxes for each component, including the midterm assignment that you already did. I just moved it all into one nice, neat little folder. It's the Units 15 through 17 Final Product Dropbox, so that everything is right there. You don't need to resubmit anything if you've already submitted it. If you already submitted the draft literature review, it's there. It didn't go anywhere. I have it. It's just in a new location. Everything else submitted through the new module folder, please make sure it goes through there. Again, I cannot take emails on this because it has to go through Turnitin. Everything that you're doing now will be submitted through Turnitin, and if you get an originality score, which is what Turnitin gives to you, it essentially compares what you've written to what everybody else in the universe has written. If you get an originality score of 30 or more, let's just say that your score itself is 55%. That means 55% of your paper was direct source from something outside, another article, another paper. Here's the tricky part. I personally do not mind if you use parts of a paper that you have already written for another class. So if you've already written a paper on prison reform and there are elements that you want to pull out, you may do so. However, there are two requirements to that. First, you have to cite yourself. That may sound a little silly, but you do. Otherwise, Turnitin is going to think that you're plagiarizing. So cite yourself. The second and most important criteria to using anything you've written in another class is that you must get permission from the other instructor to include it in this paper. Obviously, you cannot take an entire paper that you've written for another class and turn it in for this one. But if you've written something already on juvenile justice and there are 3 or 4 paragraphs that really work well for this research proposal, I don't have a problem with you putting them in there. You do need to cite yourself. And you do have to get permission from the other instructor. I have already gotten, I think, 6 requests from other instructors. So when papers go in to turn it in, it will alert another professor if there's a good match or a very close match to something you've done in their class. So please make sure you get their permission. If you don't get their permission, then you may not use your own product. So again, I don't mind if you use some stuff that you have already written in other classes. If it's a couple paragraphs, 2, 3, 4, something like that, I don't have a problem with it. You do need to cite yourself, and most importantly, you need to get permission from your other professor to do so. I have set up Turnitin so that it excludes the reference pages and it excludes really short matches, like 2 or 3 word strings, so that keeps your score lower. If your score, originality score, is 30 or higher, I will not accept it. I will just return it to you and ask you to fix it. So please check, you have access to your originality report. That's an option, and I did check that box so that you yourself could see it. If there's a problem, if it's 30% or more, you need to fix it. If you send it to me and I look at the originality report and it's 50%, I'm just going to send it straight back to you. I won't read it. I'm not going to give you comments. I'm just going to return it. I'm trying to answer almost all of the questions that I can think of in this document, so please do read it carefully. The final research proposal is really broken down into 3 kind of, mini assignments. You already did the midterm where you did your introduction. You had your draft literature review. The next piece is the full draft proposal, and then the last piece is the final product. What you have to do now, the full draft is due on April 28th. It is worth 200 points. I will get you your feedback on that draft by May 1st, and then you have a week until May 8th to turn your final product around. Again, you will be revising this paper. I've never seen a perfect paper come in on a draft. I've seen some close ones, but not perfect ones. So let's just talk a little bit about what's in a research proposal. In general, the research proposal is going to be about 12 to 18 pages. This does not include the title page. It needs to be double-spaced, APA formatting, things of that nature. I'm not going to take points off if you exceed the page limit, but please don't turn in a 50-page research proposal. I have also created a template for you. It is already APA formatted or formatted the way that I want it. That is a separate document that I will upload to your new folder for units 15 through 17. I do not want you to deviate from that template. I put the template together because that is how I want the paper structured. So please don't deviate. All you need to do honestly, is go in and fill in the blanks. Just fill in the document. If you need to update the table of contents, that's a pretty simple thing to do. You simply right-click onto the table itself. It'll say update table or just page numbers. You want to update the entire table of contents. If you don't know how to do that, it's not a big issue. It's kind of a thing. It's a hard thing to find within Word. But you can Google it, you can YouTube it, it'll show you exactly how to do it, whether you have a Mac or a PC. Your introduction needs to be about 1 to 3 pages. Your literature review, and this is where I've gotten a lot of questions. On the draft literature review that I asked you to turn in for last night, the page count was different. I believe it was 2 to 4 pages or 3 to 5 or something along those lines. It was a draft. It is something for you to build upon. Your final literature review should be about 4 to 6 pages because you should be utilizing 10 to 12 academic sources to kind of build your argument. All the sources need to be scholarly. That means that they're peer reviewed. These are books, journal articles. There's some opinion pieces that actually go through a peer review process, government-sponsored reports. All of those are scholarly. You want to look for things that are current. You can use the textbook if you want, but it doesn't count towards the citation requirements. Here's the most important point that I want to convey to you. Your literature review should not be a step-by-step review of the articles. For example, you shouldn't say Article 1, da-da-da-da-da, Article 2, da-da-da-da, Article 3, so on and so forth. What you want to do is you want to summarize the literature according to some theme. So, for example, if you're interested in use of force, I don't want to see a list of 15 articles that you summarize. I would like to see some thematic grouping of those articles. For example, one subsection could be police oversight committees. Another section could be subsection could be policy and procedure. So don't just run through the articles and provide a summary, because that's more of an annotated bibliography as opposed to a real critical, thoughtful analysis of research. When you get to this level, you need to be able to look at the themes that you're seeing in your body of work and organize those accordingly in your literature review. Only use articles that are supportive of the logic of your argument and are related to your proposed research. Again, it needs to be 4 to 6 pages long, needs to have about 10 to 12 different academic sources. Here's the key. You need to tell me what the researchers were asking, what was their research question, how did they do the research, what method did they use, what kind of data did they get from it, and how was it used, and most importantly, what did they find? At the end of your literature review section, you can then have 2 or 3 paragraphs that address some of the strengths and the weaknesses of the existing literature. And you can speak to how those strengths and weaknesses will inform your own design. So let's say you find an article and they have a survey in that has been proven reliable and valid, and you propose to use this survey in your own study for addressing a particular question. It is totally okay for you to say that. That's why you review articles, because you can pick up on techniques and information and data sources that you can then use. You can also see in existing literature where people went wrong. Researchers weren't able to complete things, the data weren't available, they had challenges. You can speak to those challenges. At the end of the literature review, again, you can have 2 to 3 paragraphs that discusses from this existing literature, this study all encompass designs that would be appropriate for the current proposed study. Or you can say, this study Did they measured age this way, which is not appropriate, and as such, I will be measuring age this particular way in the proposed study. The literature review section should be 4 to 6 pages long. Please do not get confused with the draft, which was a different page count. This is your final literature review. It should be 4 to 6 pages long. Your methods, these are going to be 5 to 8. This should be about 5 to 8. More detail is better. This needs to be detailed enough so that a person can look at what you have written down on those 5 to 8 pages and replicate your study based entirely on what you have included in this section. These are the core elements of your research methods section. First, state your research question or your hypothesis or hypotheses. Talk a little bit about why it's important to study this issue. Maybe give a general overview of the techniques that you're going to use. Second paragraph, define your concepts. Talk about the concepts under study. What exactly are you going to be looking at? Third paragraph, conceptual and operational definitions. This is the number one problem that I find with research proposals. In general, students don't do this at all. They just leave this out. And I always provide the same feedback. You don't have a section that defines conceptually or operationally the variables that you're looking at. So please don't miss that key element. Then you need to talk about your general approach to the research. Is it quantitative, qualitative, or mixed? Talk about the type of design. Is this a pre-post test? Is this a post-test only? Is it a randomized experiment? Is it quasi-experimental? Then discuss your sampling design and strategy. You need to specify your unit of analysis. You need to define your population, and then you need to talk about how you would draw elements out of that population. How would you sample? Which technique would you use specifically? Identify the methods you would use to collect the data. Are you going to be using secondary data? You're going to do surveys. You're going to observe, interviews. You do archival analysis. Talk about that. Talk about how you would code. If you are proposing an interview or a survey or some type of observation, you need to include those instruments as part of the appendices. So I need to see it. You can't just say, well, I'm going to do a survey of law enforcement about stress levels after a 12-hour shift. I need to see the survey. You need to write a survey that will get at that particular issue. Don't recreate the wheel here. There's a link here to the CDC. I think it's like a 500-page document that has hundreds of instruments that you can use, and a simple Google search will turn up a survey on pretty much any topic within criminal justice. You don't need to recreate the wheel. Those surveys are out there so other researchers can use them. Please do. Go find one and make sure you include it in your appendix section. Procedures that you'll use. Where are you going? When are you going? What's your schedule? What's the location? How are you going to collect notes? How are you going to protect the data? Finally, then you need to come and tell me your timeline. Analysis and statistical testing, you can leave this part blank as most of you have not engaged in your statistics course yet, so you do not need to put anything here, and it is not included in the template that I'm providing for you to fill in. Again, the method section should be between 5 and 8 pages. Your conclusion, this is 1 or 2 pages. You want to restate the problem, the research question, talk again about why it's important, address any limitations that you see specifically in your own design, and also discuss the internal and external validity of the proposed study. Again, this should be about 1 to 2 pages. Appendices should include any original surveys developed and or any surveys that are already out there and that can be used for your study. Any instruments, obviously if something's copyrighted, you need to make sure that you include the copyright information, instructions to subjects if this is applicable, consent forms if applicable, and debriefing scripts if applicable. So if you're planning to do any of those things in your proposed study, I need to see those elements written out. So those are the directions, and I want to show you very quickly the template that I created for you to use for this paper. Let me get to it here. It's going to be somewhere. Where's my template? Here it is. So I have created this for you. I don't want you to use anything else. Whether I've posted it or you've come across it online, this is the template I want you to use to complete your draft final proposal and the final proposal. Basic information here. This is APA, title, your name, your institution, course, and date. You should never have a page number on the first page, so that's not there. This is your table of contents. If you want to update the table of contents on a Mac, you right-click and you go to Update Field and Update Entire Table, hit OK, and it's going to change the page numbers to match these headings. For a PC, I'm not sure because I'm a Mac girl, so you'll have to Google that one, but I think it's pretty similar. So the first section is your abstract. This is going to be about 150 to 200 words. It's a very short, concise description. What are you studying? How are you going to study it? Why is it important to study? It's pretty simple, and it's short, and it's to the point. Introduction, literature review. Remember I mentioned those subsections. So again, do not list out the articles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and provide a one-paragraph summary. I want thematic conversations. So if you're studying juvenile delinquency, there are a whole bunch of issues and topics within juvenile delinquency. There's older offenders. There are violent offenders. Each one of these could be a subsection. So make sure that you're grouping your articles by some sort of thematic issue and then talking about them as a whole. Your methods, again, please do not deviate from this structure. It's going to make everybody's life easier. Yours easier, mine easier. It's really going to go quicker if you'll just stick to this template. The research question, concepts under study, conceptual and operational definitions, approach to research, research design, sampling, research techniques, procedures, and timeline. Finally, your discussion and your conclusion. Then you need your references and then your appendices. So this is what I have created for you all, and I'm getting ready to upload all of this into your new unit. If you have any remaining questions, please reach out to me. Now is the time to get these addressed. I do appreciate all the questions that I've gotten so far. I want to help, clear up any kind of confusion. I know we're hitting the home stretch. And if there's anything you need from me, please email me or give me a call. If you've already emailed me, please read through the announcements. Please look at this video walkthrough. And if you still have questions, no problem. Call me or send me an email and I will get on it. I really do appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to your draft proposals.